So, I'm back and I'm complaining about Disney live action adaptations because that seems to be what's popular in this day and age. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be a hater. I want to love them all. Remakes of my childhood favourites? Hell yeah, I'm all aboard the train. Disney's so rich they could just make endless content. So in my eyes, it's not like they're preventing other Disney films being made. Hell, I don't even think that Disney live action films have ever been considered that good to begin with, so it's not like we're missing out, so why not? So yeah, we're not missing much. And in the end, I think these films are a big opportunity, and I want to enjoy them. And in the past, I have defended some of them. But my goodness, they make it difficult sometimes, whether it's the scripting or specific style choices that they make. I feel like these movies, for the most part, are swirling the toilet. Absolute trash tier for the most part. Not all of them, but most of them. And if you've bought a punnet of strawberries and 3/4 of them were rotten, you'd be pretty mad. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Most of the films do suck. And so I'm not going to give these films the benefit of the doubt anymore. And more, I see the movies make the same exact mistakes. And I can't help but question how. How do they keep doing the same thing again and again? Is nobody telling these writers, these directors, hey, the last couple guys that tried this failed, change this? Or are they purposely trying to make bad films to lose money and have a tax write-off? Is that what we're dealing with here? Because otherwise, how is one of the biggest worldwide film and TV conglomerates churning out this sort of content regularly? How do they fumble it again and again? And what do you know? They seem to be ready to do the same to Bambi. Bambi! How are you gonna ruin Bambi? Like, theoretically, this should be a home run. A big time hit. Hyper-realistic, cutesy animals combined with a wholesome story? I'm in. Like, yeah, sometimes the photorealistic CGI can be a bit cringe when they try to do all the emotions. But this is a story that doesn't need that quite as much. I mean, look at this. Look at this. A fawn. A baby deer. They got to rank among the cutest animals of all time. They really are. Just look at the glistening black eyes, the shiny little nose. Oh. Fawns are just legit. They are the cutest things ever. Then you add baby rabbits, a baby skunk, because, a baby skunk? I googled it. It's cute. Cuteness overload. Should be a home run. It's not really a live action remake, because it's animated, but regardless, it should be a success on the visuals alone. But then I read something recently that made me shake my head in despair. That one of the screenwriters is on record saying that they think that parents are more sensitive to the death of Bambi's mum than they were in the past, and thus they're not showing the modern generation of kids this film. They want to protect them. And that they think that there's a way to update Bambi to make it more accessible to modern generations. And I'm sitting here thinking, huh? What an actual load of shit. How could you sit there and say this with a straight face? For starters, the generation that are currently first-time parents, people born in the 80s and 90s for the most part, they grew up on kids' films that famously killed off parents. Fox and the Hound, The Lion King, Tarzan's parents, geez, and his gorilla foster dad gets blown away. That's just some of the deaths we've seen. You telling me those parents have now gone soft and think it would be better to not have such iconic moments? And Nemo's mum as well. Just thought of another one. And I mean, absolute cringe if true. And so I hope it's not true. There's a reason that Bambi's so iconic, and it is that scene. A scene so devastating, so depressing, so raw and visceral that it took 40 years for Disney to be brave enough to kill off a parent again. And now, Disney is synonymous with killing off a parent. But literally, this was their first try, and it took until Fox and the Hound in the 80s where they killed off Todd's mum to do it again. That's how heavy this was and how much of an impact it had. And so, they want it to be accessible to a modern audience? How? By changing things that the parents that watched it found iconic? Things that cross generations? It just doesn't compute with me. And it really ties back into the same old thing that I've noticed with this latest crop of remakes. They want to update things for the modern audience, but more often than not it seems to fall flat on its face, and it reeks of an example of how it's going to fall flat. If they don't kill her off, what are they going to do with her? Have him taken to the zoo? Her taken to the zoo? Like, what? The whole point is she dies and he has to grow up alone with his kind of distant dad. It doesn't make sense, and it goes against the major message of the film. And just, I can't even wrap my head around it as an artistic choice. If you ask anybody, it's literally the most iconic part of the movie. In the same way as the stampede that causes Mufasa's death is clearly the most iconic part of The Lion King. What a joke. I love Disney, and for all my big talk and complaining, I will see this movie, if only to make a video hating on it to get some money out of it. But my god, these attempts at modernizing old films and themes, they're a blight a blight on the industry. And look, I'm not trying to be old-fashioned. I'm all for removing racism and sexism or whatever. That's all good stuff. But that's not the problem I've got. It's the desire to change things that don't necessarily need to be changed, or removing things that do need to be changed but without replacing them. Because that's where you start to hit that level of things no longer being enjoyable because it's just boring. And for me, Bambi is firmly sitting in that category of a needless change. The whole point is that human intervention changes the course of Bambi's life. Without that key moment, how is it even the same film, the same story? It's not. I mean, take a look at something like Peter Pan and Wendy, that remake. There were problematic elements in the original film, e.g. the native people and how racist that portrayal was. And then there's elements that do not hold up today under modern scrutiny for modern ideals, like the way they frame the difference between girls and boys and the interactions between them. So they took out the native caricatures for the most part, which was a very good thing. And they shift away from the motherly Wendy story, which is good in theory. They turn her into more of a hero, but they also seemingly forgot they needed to actually replace the story beats. And so, you ended up losing the big connection between Wendy, her brothers, Peter, and the Lost Boys all at once, with nothing filling that void. She does more action, more stunts, but they don't fill up the narrative side. And so much of the film is dull and lifeless, and the character dynamics suffered hard for it. It's just such a snooze fest of a film. Or take a look at Mulan. Clearly, they were trying to make the film seem a bit more serious. They didn't want to take the piss. They didn't want to offend anyone. They wanted to show that they were treating Chinese culture with respect. I get it. But the thing is, the most popular stuff about the original are the songs that they removed, which were deeply iconic and awesome, and also Mushu, who's by far the most popular character. And thus, when they removed them, they didn't really replace them with anything, just made a very generic action film, and the film suffered for it. The void wasn't filled, and it sucked. And I'm pretty sure that all these sacrifices meant nothing because it wasn't even liked in China to begin with. I think I remember it being considered as lame American pandering that didn't even get their culture correct. And in fact, in China, I'm pretty sure it was more widely disliked than the original was, which is an epic fail. But that being said, they haven't always gotten it wrong. They have the capacity to be good, which is why this is so frustrating. Because when they're going to shift the narrative to change things up, they have to go all in, like Maleficent or Cruella. Those are films that wanted to shift things to a more modern audience sensibility and take two of the most two-dimensional, pure evil type characters in Disney history. Maleficent, a person who punishes a baby because she doesn't like their parents, or Cruella, a person who wants to kill puppies and gives them an origin, a backstory, a reason. And you can argue until the cows come home about whether it was needed backstory. But the reality is that these films explore the nuance of what makes a villain in a really interesting way. They remove things from the original story and portrayal that might not have aged well or make sense anymore, but they add in something to replace it. But most of the remakes universally just take away the things that made it popular, or things that no longer make sense, but they don't replace them with new things to add their own twist. And so it's just boring. And instead of trying to fix the script, fix the characters, fix the story, they just try to distract you from this paper-thin story or character by having good sets, or good costumes, or good CGI. Because visually it is good, but the story often sucks. And in the end, I think this has poisoned the well, because so many people now, where they used to be apprehensive, now just default to hating these films on arrival. They won't give them a chance and they just rage about them online. And so now it's astounding to me that Disney has not learned from their mistakes. They've been doing this for over 10 years. And so I feel like the upcoming Bambi film, whenever it comes out, if they follow this path, is going to be a disaster. And so, yeah, with all that being said, not really much else to say. And so I would like to remind you that these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the current crop of Disney live action remakes? Am I on the money with my critiques, or maybe you disagree with me? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.